I'm one of a lot of people in this pulling community who are very passionate about it. And there's a lot of people like me that sees the brilliance and sees the greatness of this sport that's underserved, just to be honest, we feel like to the outer world.
Hey, this is Jesse here, and you're about to hear episode 130 with Chase Richardson from Full Pull, which is growing the sport of truck and tractor pulling through innovative real money gaming and digital streaming platforms. In this one, Chase gives us a primer on what truck and tractor pulling is and why he thinks it's perfectly suited for betting. He also talks about how Full Pull's content partnership with Betr will help drive awareness and interest in the sport, how his background as an NCAA Div 1 men's basketball coach has helped prepare him to compete in business, and his experience being welcomed into the real money gaming industry as a newcomer. I really enjoyed this episode with Chase, and if you do too, I'd be forever grateful if you'd like this episode on YouTube or rate it 5 stars on whichever podcast platform you're listening on. The Betting Startups podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. 4 out of the top 5 US operators personalize player experiences with Optimove. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/bettingstartups. And if you like what you see, you'll get your first month free. All right, we are back with episode 130 of the Betting Startups podcast. And this week is a big week, of course, being it's the start of the new NFL season. So naturally, given that football's kicking off, our guest today happens to be in the truck and tractor pulling business. I got Chase Richardson here with me, and Chase, lots to talk about here today, but just to check in at the starting line, pardon the pun, how's your summer been and how you keeping today?
Doing great, Jesse. And actually, maybe the stars were aligned perfectly here because I'm actually in Canton, Ohio, home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, for a truck and tractor pulling event tonight and tomorrow. But yeah, a lot of exciting things and busy summer, busy season, but we're growing pretty fast. So it's been a great kickoff to our journey.
I think probably a few people listening to this already are like, what the heck is truck and tractor pulling? Just as a point of reference here before we have you answer that, last month I had Benjie Cherniak, a friend of the podcast and obviously very close collaborator of yours on the Full Pull team. Benji came to visit me where I live on the west coast of Canada here, and he flew in from Nashville, where the day prior he was with you and your team spending a few days there. So I was having lunch with Benji, and he's like, dude, what do you know about this truck and tractor pulling stuff? I'm like, honestly, not a heck of a lot. I met Chase for 5 minutes in New Jersey in May. I got a quick rundown of it, but I don't know a heck of a lot. So why don't you educate me here? And we sat there having lunch, and he basically ran me through what was like basically a mind-blowing thing for me to hear. He described this experience that you and your team gave him when he visited you guys, and wondering if you can try and capture the essence of that experience for the audience here and give us a bit of a primer on just what tractor and truck pulling is, and then you can drill down from there, Chase.
Benji went from a regular urbanized gentleman, he would probably call himself that, to a tractor pulling enthusiast, like complete diehard overnight. Now, and before we get started, Jesse, your podcast, Betting Startups, this is almost like a pinch me moment for myself, as you'll hear probably more of our story and so forth. But as I dove into this world of gaming, I came across your podcast a few years back, and for someone that has no ties to gaming, doesn't know anyone in gaming, and just has an idea, it kept me motivated and kept me going. At least there's other people out there with these crazy ideas. So shout out to Betting Startups, and I'm really excited to be on here. The sport of truck and tractor pulling has been around for 3/4 of a century, 75 plus years. And the easiest way to explain it, it is a motorsport, but when people think of motorsports, they typically think speed, time, who can go the fastest, which in pulling, that does help going the fastest, but it's not relative to outcomes and winning or losing. It's literally who can pull something the furthest, and that what they're pulling is what's called a pulling sled. So there's a little bit of buffering to understand the sport itself, just because as kids growing up, we're not outside with our friends seeing who can pull something the furthest or seeing who can win a race with one another. So the concept itself is unique, but it's not very complicated, and it's a worldwide sport. It started in Midwest U.S., but it is worldwide now, including Canada. There's actually a big following, particularly in the Ontario space in Canada, for this sport, and particularly takes place in the summertime months, call it from late May to middle of September. There's thousands of these events across the U.S., across the globe, worldwide. So it's a sport that has continued to grow from a technology and competitor standpoint, and the resources that expanded to it. I mean, it's marvelous, unbelievable technology when you dive into it. But hasn't really seen the same growth from just its outreach and the digital age. So we're Full Pull Entertainment, which is the owner of Full Pull Live and Full Pull Picks, as we'll get into later, is kind of the driver of helping expand and grow this sport, while a lot of other opportunities have came along at the same time.
Cool. And I think I have to correct myself, Chase. I might have said at the opening of the show here, truck and tractor racing, when in fact, it's not a race at all, as you pointed out there. It has nothing to do with speed or anything like that. So apologies to any enthusiasts I might have offended with my misstep there. And to your point,
that's a big no, Jesse. You can't call it racing.
Forgive me this one time, if you will.
Eventually, maybe we can it'll get reference with your podcast, and as we keep getting awareness out there, it's just the sport of pulling, because there's no other pulling anywhere. But we'll give you a pass on the racing reference this one time, Jesse.
I was just going to say, you know what, I might from here on out, Chase, just reference it as pulling, keep myself in line here. With respect to just talking for a moment about these machines, right? And again, reflecting back on this lunch I had with Benji last month, he was describing, I'm not a mechanical guy whatsoever. I can't even change the oil in my car, but he was describing to me just like sitting in the sled and the engines fire up, and just like the energy and how highly tuned these things are, and the sheer investment required to actually get one of these things operational, let alone at a level to compete at a top level. So you're sitting right now, as you said, preparing for a competition this weekend. I don't know if you can tilt the camera there, but you're literally sitting, I think, beside your team, if I'm not mistaken. You guys are tuning up, getting ready for this weekend. Talk about what goes into getting ready for one of these events from a competitor standpoint.
Yeah, so I'm actually in the production trailer where they do the live streaming. I'm sitting where the guest sits. Over here is the team kind of getting ready for the event tonight. They would probably shoot me if they knew they're on camera, but probably should intro with this initially. But like I was brought into this sport, which has been a generational thing for my family. My grandfather started, my father did it, and from childbirth I was a tractor puller, just to be honest, because it's just something our family's done, as has a lot of these people and these teams in this community. But I'm a competitor still to this day, juggling the business side of it now somewhat as well. But the sport is so unique in that you have a lot of very successful people in their day jobs, so to speak, that rather than going and probably investing in a beach house or a houseboat or whatever people do for fun, that they go spend a lot of money on these pulling vehicles. As people get into it, and once they can touch and feel it, see it and experience it, you don't see many people walk away from it. Now, a part of what we're doing with our business is we have to improve the messaging and get that effect that Benji shared with you to everyone, which we're well on our way to doing. But it's a extremely skilled sport. I know a lot of people have drawn to the F1 Netflix show. I'm not a Netflix guy, but it's obviously F1 is a worldwide sport that's seen a lot of rapid growth here of late. Obviously, having a Netflix series helps with that. These are different levels of people in terms of these guys. Some of these guys are farmers, some of these guys are business owners, but the brilliance and skill and details that go into be good at this sport, I think, would be remarkable if that messaging gets out there to people, just because it's very tedious, and the whole dynamic of pulling rather than racing presents a lot of cool scenarios that people don't really think of. And in this sport also, one person goes at a time, so there's not a lot of sports. I think maybe bowling, we joke about this a lot, but I think maybe bowling is the only sport I can think of where just one person goes at a time, which it's competitor versus track, which lends itself pretty cool when looking at it from a competitive standpoint.
Obviously, it sounds like you grew up with this around you. You're a competitor yourself. It's a big passion of yours. Your family's probably deep in the heritage of your community where you live. Talk a little bit about how you decided to start a business around pulling. What precipitated all this? What's the origin story, I guess, of Full Pull? And what was the moment that you said, aha, there's something here. I'm going to be the one to go out and really bring this into the forefront and a broader sort of awareness around it? I
wake up many days asking myself how we ever got to this point, but it's been an amazing journey that I'm very proud of and can't wait to see where it goes. But yeah, I didn't see myself doing what we're doing now, but kind of backs up. I'm one of a lot of people in this pulling community who are very passionate about it, and there's a lot of people like me that sees the brilliance and sees the greatness of this sport that's underserved, just to be honest. We feel like, to the outer world. I have friends that their way of helping promote and grow, they put on their own events. I have other guys that get involved in some other business side of it, whether it be on the B2B side from a manufacturing standpoint for competitors or so forth. There's a lot of people like me that are passionate and want to see this grow. Specifically, my story, it's actually really funny. In my former life, because I feel like a vampire sometimes. I was a Division I college basketball coach for 10 years, actually. Two things I've kind of always identified myself with, or people that are close to me would tell you about myself, is basketball and tractor pulling. It's like my DNA. I'm a competitive person by nature, so obviously competition is found deeply in both of those. It was around August of 2019, and it was a Friday night. I'll never forget this. One of my coaching buddies at the university I was coaching at the time, I invited him over to my house. The cool part about tractor pulling is that in August, there's not a lot of things going on Friday nights. Obviously, September football season in full effect, but we're at my house on Friday and we're having a few drinks, and I pull up this tractor pull that my father is competing at, and I'm giving him the educational piece. He doesn't really know this side of me, so he's like, "What is this sport again?" He has the idea, and I laugh about this to this day. He's like, "Dude, this is the most bettable sport I've ever seen in my life. Like, you should be able to bet on this." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Every one of these guys, like, it's like perfect for betting. Like, somebody needs to come up with an idea how to make this bettable." So that's like the first time, I guess, I was like, "Oh, that sounds good." Well, anyway, a year later, 2020, as we all know, COVID, a lot of things changed and a lot of experiences were different for people. I was still coaching at the time, and we all look back. There was a few sporting events taking place that I think had some betting behind it, probably some horse racing and maybe even cricket or some other things I can't recall. But like the only sports going on was ones you could bet on. And I remember thinking to myself, man, if we could bet on tractor pulling, we could probably go be out tractor pulling somewhere. So that's really probably the moment where I was like, I'm going to really look into this. I'm from Kentucky, and I live 30 minutes from Churchill Downs, the home of the Kentucky Derby. People from Kentucky know horse racing just because that's kind of in your DNA. And it started literally as, I'm going to start looking into how we can make tractor pulling like horse racing. That was in late 2020. I got out of coaching and came back to work for our family business and set on this journey I'm sitting here 4 years later. We have a real money gaming platform, a streaming platform, and a lot of stuff I never saw myself doing, but it's something I'm very proud of and excited that I was fortunate enough to get into.
This is a super cool story, Chase, and a perfect transition to talk a little bit about what it is exactly you guys are up to, right? So you just alluded to it, but for the audience that's trying to wrap their head around all this and what exactly you're up to, can you break down the main lines of business you have, the main focus areas? Because there is a few of them running in parallel here. Just give us some context around what it is you guys are up to tangibly.
We launched right at 2 months ago a real money gaming platform, skill fantasy gaming in 19 states. And it's our proprietary technology, which is a funny story we can get into, honestly, how we got to that point. It's unique in market from a gaming standpoint. When I say that, because it's not your typical DFS platform. We innovated and did some new things with the help of a great legal and team around us, where the best way to describe it is if you took a horse race and married it to a paid entry FanDuel DraftKings fantasy contest, and those two collided. It's the product we have, which is really cool and exciting. We've worked with a lot of states and still going through the process. I expect us to be live in probably up to 4 more states within the next 60 days. So that process has been really cool. You hear some of these stories from regulatory bodies, how they don't really work with you, but it's not been that experience for us. We wanted to build this where it was compliant out the gates. Had nothing but good praise for a number of keynote states in that regard. So we have the gaming company often going right at 2 months now. And then beyond that, through some of these other opportunities that presented themselves, are the streaming provider for the largest organization in truck and tractor pulling worldwide, along with another couple organizations we have partnerships with, and created a platform called Full Pull Live, which for the first time is really a scaled up version of streaming of the sport, really try to storytell and pour a lot more resource into the streaming side of the sport itself. And that's gone extremely well. We launched our first event May 31st, and we've already 7x the amount of subscribers previously that was operating the platform. So 2 totally different things are working themselves. Obviously, they complement each other. And then as this stuff is all played out, our stake in this truck and tractor pulling world and there's a lot of other bodies that want to work with us. We're just trying to get through this season and reevaluate. But I think another big avenue for our business is going to be sponsorship. When I say that, being we're carrying the digital arm for the sport now. And sponsorship for a lot of sports, specifically motorsports, it's a big driver for revenue, which is an initiative that I'm very passionate about, to try to make this where it's one day a career for some people more than a hobby that it is now. As things evolve, I think the sponsorship side of our business is going to be a very big thing we do moving into 2025 and beyond.
You alluded to the fact that these different sort of focus areas or lines of business are different, albeit very complementary to each other. And ignoring the pulling aspect of it for a moment here, it does remind me a little bit of some other, I guess we'll call it niche operators that are doing things in the real money gaming space. We have Nick Sulsky in the curling group, following the same playbook roughly with the sport of curling and driving awareness and interest in it through both content and then a real money gaming product. You got the team over at Pro League Network, who a little bit different in the sense they are actually creating some of the sports themselves, things like card jitsu and some pretty unique and quirky but super entertaining and compelling sports there, doing the same thing. It's a bit of a well-trodden path in terms of this sort of cohesive content pillar, real money gaming pillar, and some of the other ancillary things like sponsorship you just talked about. Coming back for a second, Chase, to the real money gaming product, I know it's only been in market for 2 months so far, but what's some of the early response been? And I guess what I'm ultimately curious about is it existing fans of polling that are engaging with this product, or are you seeing any evidence that this is drawing in new audiences and new fans to the sport at this early stage?
This whole business started with the idea of making this sport bettable. In 2023, we did a free-to-play offering via Chalkline, which was a very successful campaign on our end, just to wrap our heads around, would people be interested in this? Is this what's our audience like? There's probably millions of polling fans that are unaccounted for right now that we're bringing into the ecosystem. The free-to-play was a very successful campaign for 2/3 of last summer, where we knew at that point we definitely need to do something real money related through the help of Benjie Cherniak, who I'm sure we'll get to later. He's essentially, he wouldn't probably take this, but I would call him a co-founder, because without him, none of this would ever happen. And I mean that in a very good way. And going to last fall, right at a year ago right now, our plan was do a white label partnership with existing operators. As we all know, that's a much easier path with from a technology and regulatory standpoint, and went through a journey. It was really a journey, and Benji spent a lot of time with us navigating this, and through a number of conversations and a lot of great people in the white label space, it just landed where we're looking at ourselves, because it is a unique, like motorsports is unique. So we ended up landing on, hey, look, we're going to build our own proprietary technology. And I think Benji thought I was a little bit crazy whenever I said we're going to do this, not from the idea of doing it, but he's, dude, you're going to go make this move. There's no promises any of this is going to work out, because when you build your own tech and you create your own gameplay, there's so much unknowns. But thankfully, our tech has gone really well. We have great developers. Honestly, I viewed this whole initial launch this summer with our product, because it was launched in market late June as a test. And luckily, everything's gone extremely well. And it's really funny how things play out, owning and having our own technology. There's been a number of similar type entities to truck and tractor pulling, other niche sports from a wide array, that have seeked us out, interested in talking about potential white label partnerships. Now, we're not quite there right now, but it's funny how things evolve, and we're very optimistic about how that could play into our business.
Cool, and we will come back to talk about Benji before we get out of here today, Chase. Also, shout out to Dan Castelli from Chalkline, who you mentioned. If I'm not mistaken, is Dan also from Kentucky? Do I have that right?
Only the best are from Kentucky, Jesse. So yeah, I consider Dan a friend, and those guys had nothing but a first-class experience with them. Obviously, they're only on the free-to-play side, but was a great resource for myself. I have so many people in the gaming industry is of good advice and good paths forward. And Dan lives probably only like an hour and a half from me, so he's a huge shout out to those guys. We were very lucky to find them in our journey.
Dan's absolutely one of the good people in our business. We'll put the real money gaming product aside for a minute, but I want to stick with just the content that you guys are producing and creating and distributing, and focus on that for a second here. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, you guys had a big event. As part of that event, I think that was your first foray into a partnership with Betr. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what the plan is to propagate the content, distribute it more widely, and ultimately get more eyeballs on what it is that you and the team and the athletes are doing.
Naturally, the content side of our business is really taken off, and it's a huge driver to grow our sport, as is our initiative with Full Pull. And the Betr thing, one of the opportunities I think we have for our sport to grow this sport is, there are events year round, but the busy season, like what we're in right now, is, as I mentioned, summertime, late May to middle September, which in a sports world, there's not a ton going on. And as you look at growing something, if this was only during football season or in the middle of the wintertime, I probably wouldn't be as optimistic to getting new eyeballs to it. But having that unique time frame when there's not a ton going on, we collaborated. I actually met some people from the Betr team at a gaming conference spring of 2023, and kind of did an intro. And obviously they were familiar with Benji too, but said, hey, look, I know you have some influencers and you're all about cool content. There's this sport you never heard of, but I promise you, if you all ever got to an event, it would be worth your time. And had the conversations go on throughout a year or so. Then in late July, they reached out and wanted to take a dive and try to do some things around our sport. And I should probably mention, like, these events during the summertime, the attendees are as many as a NBA basketball game, to be honest. And there's one primarily, the biggest tractor pull in the world, as you mentioned, was 2 weeks ago, was in Bowling Green, Ohio. There's 70,000 people that go through that place. And there's a whole cultural dynamic with beyond the competition. It's a party scene, just to put it blunt. It's no secret that there's people go to have a good time while also spectating. So, yeah, Betr sent a couple of their influencers, the Handshake Bets guys specifically. I don't know if those of you fought Betr or not. They're quite the entertainers, but they came out, didn't know anything about the sport, literally pitched it to their audiences, and pulling fans really engaged with them and got them there. They got there, and I would say that it was a 10 out of 10 experience from their standpoint, because their content did very well. They got exposed to something they didn't know existed, and that group has been nothing but first class. And moving forward, obviously they're getting focused on the football season ahead, but I could definitely see there being further collaboration with the Betr group. I'm not going to say that I knew that it was going to be this way, because I didn't, but obviously I'm very biased. But when you have people like Benji and those guys, the Handshake Bets guys from Betr, come in and really take this sport in person and experience it and see how they walk away and telling you the stories about it and people elsewhere, that makes me feel really good about where we are and where we can take this.
Let's transition a little bit. I want to talk a bit more about your journey into full pull here. There's a few interesting, I think, aspects to it. One of which for me that's super interesting is obviously just your background as an NCAA Div 1 basketball coach, right? You're hyper competitive. You come in with that mindset of that winning mindset, but obviously preparation, surrounding yourself with good people, being coachable yourself. All of these aspects play into success both on the court, but also in the field of business. As you've started this journey, this chapter of your life, how have you taken some of the aspects of being a coach into this, and how's that both helped you, but also enabled you to be coached as well, right?
I had nothing but a great experience with basketball and coaching. Some of my best friends in life are still in coaching. That lifestyle, and it's just not college basketball coaching. I think anybody at the Division I level or professional level, it's not really a job, it's a lifestyle. And your job is literally at stake depending on wins and losses. It's pretty high intense. As a college basketball coach, one of my primary jobs was recruiting, which is basically a sales job. When you're a recruiter, you're used to getting told no a lot, but you probably only get 5% of the people you really pitch. So living that lifestyle and having that built in your brain, like, you're probably not like most people that probably don't take it quite the same. Fast forward to me in the early 2020, 2021, and so forth, when I'm really just trying to navigate this whole gaming world, not knowing anyone and being told no a lot, getting a lot of stupid looks and stupid answers. There's nice people, but dude, what is this sport? What are you doing? No, you can't, this is never going to happen. Go do something else. That happens a lot. But I guess just from the resiliency you get from being a coach and being told no a lot, and then when you lose games as a coach, it's hard, but you have to get back up and go back to work. So I think you almost have a leg up on a lot of people because you're just really resilient. So that helped me a ton. And then obviously this is just not in the gaming space. This isn't anything in life, and I truly believe this. But if you get enough of the right people involved, now how you get those people, there's no blueprint for it, but you get the right people involved and all the same people in the same room. And I always use the term with our team, like everyone pulling the same rope. I really believe anything is possible. Seeing this through to this point, I have no reason to ever think otherwise. I am a man of faith, but I also do know it's hard to really find those people. When you get them, you want them to be a part of this journey with you. And it wasn't ever easy, but I'm pretty happy and I'm pretty confident moving forward that we got the right people pulling the rope, and we'll just continue adding more and more, and who knows where this can go from here.
I have to say, I feel like it was a missed opportunity there to say the right people pulling the sled instead of the rope. But anyway,
well, you're still making up for that racing comment, so we'll keep that in mind in the future.
Fair enough. Look, we mentioned his name a bunch now, so let's talk about Benji for a second. I feel like if this episode was a drinking game, everybody took a drink every time his name was mentioned, they would have fallen asleep 5 minutes ago. But look, Benji, obviously extremely well known within the industry. He's involved in a lot of projects, a lot of companies. And more than that, a lot of people want him to be involved in their projects and companies. And when we were having lunch last month, he was lamenting to me. I said, what are you looking for in deals these days? Or what opportunities are you looking at? And he's honestly, I'm actually looking for less. I'm not looking for more, right? And for all the people that have tried and continue to try to get Benji's attention and get him involved for all of the value he adds to anything he's involved in, you managed to rise above the rest and actually get him to not only get involved, but he's flying to your events. He's hanging out with you guys. Like that is very rare air to be in. And I love it, Chase. If you can just talk a little bit about how you managed to do that, right? What is it that Benji saw in you, your team, the opportunity that captured his interest, but more importantly, how did you close him and get him to commit to putting his very limited time and mind share and focus into Full Pull?
Very proud to speak of this. As I've said, that I wouldn't be having this conversation without Benji. He probably doesn't like me saying that, but I truly feel that way. What's funny with Benji, he took a 15-minute call from, I need to shout out Dan Wallach too, from Wallach Legal. He's our legal representation that really helped intro us to Benji. And he's also been a big part in navigating this new form of fantasy that we have in market now. I had enough idea of what we wanted to do, but didn't really know how to get there. And as people know in gaming, sometimes you got to have that somebody. This is actually a pretty good story too. He took 15 minutes for a call. It was right before that iGaming Next conference, I believe, and did our 15-minute pitch to him. He was very nice and considerate, but basically said, I'll keep it in mind. Thanks for allowing me to listen to your meeting. I'll catch up with you later. When it ended, I was like, I think that guy actually, I just felt like he had something more interest than maybe some. I know he was a very busy guy and high demand, but I decided I'm going to find my way into that conference, the iGaming Next conference. In fact, it was sold out, and I had called trying to get my way in there, and they wouldn't. It was sold out capacity, and I couldn't do that. And then literally 2 days before the conference, they called me back and said, okay, you can come the second day, but second day only, but this is how you got to do it. So I booked a flight to New York. I went to the conference. I was like, hey, Benji, this is Chase, the tractor pulling guy. And he's, what the hell you doing here? But from that point, he spent some more time with us. And I think it was more, I don't really know what I said or did. He probably don't know what I said or did, but we hit it off enough where he said, all right, I'll listen to you for a month. And I think he saw, as he learned more and others that have gotten part of our business learn more, that there's something here potentially. And that 1 month partnership has been going on close to 2 years, and it's been amazing. And this wherever this all goes, he's going to be at the forefront of it as long as he wants to be, as far as I'm concerned.
There's a lot of aspects of your story that I love. I think one of the things that really stands out here as we get to the finish line of our conversation today is just for you coming into this brand new space with no real contacts, no real sense of which way to go or which way to take it, other than you had this idea married with the passion for the sport. You entered this space, and now a few years later, you're right here with all of us. Talk a little bit about if you were speaking to somebody else a bit earlier on in their journey. If you were talking to Chase 3-4 years ago, what can you share in terms of what it takes to enter a space, like meet new people? Like, what do you got to do to really break through and really give yourself that credibility and legitimacy and just really establish yourself as a peer to the folks that are already there?
Credit this to my coaching days too, because when you're walking in somewhere like I mentioned the gaming conference that I found Benji at, it's a bit intimidating when you walk in there and you don't know anyone and you have this idea and all these people like are there. So I would say just you got to be fearless and confident in yourself. And also, you may not have an outgoing personality, but there is a lot of really, really, really nice, good people in gaming. I tell people all the time that aren't in gaming that want to hear about our story or how we got to this point. If you were willing to talk to people and be fearless and not be afraid to shut down, you'll eventually find the right person.
All right, Chase. So before we let you go, you're getting ready there to compete this weekend. This episode, of course, being released the week of the start of NFL, but we're recording this on the Friday prior. You are literally about to compete over the next couple of days. So just quickly talk about what goes into preparing for one of these competitions. Also, what does the future of you as a competitor look like, given that you have so much on your plate now growing the Full Pull business?
Yeah, these competitors are first-class athletes from my standpoint, because there's never just showing up and competing. They're always adapting, changing. There's a lot of variables in truck and tractor pulling that can complicate things, and there's a lot of smart data that people reference and just always fine-tune every event. If the story gets properly told, people that compete truck and tractor pulling are some of the best athletes in all of sports. Then for me personally, I'm very competitive. I always wanted to compete in something, but there probably is a day where I'm going to have to step away as this grows, at least from a competitor standpoint. It's more of a passion for me to grow this sport than me compete. So if it's in the cards for me to step away, I'll step away. But for right now, I'll try to win this event tonight.
Right on, man. For people listening, Chase, that want to check out Full Pull online in terms of the streams, want to check out the Real Money Gaming product and or get in touch with yourself, can you quickly just plug where they can go do all that?
Full Pull app is available on iOS, Android, Google Play devices. Within that app, you can get to our Full Pull Picks platform as well as our streaming platform. Full Pull Live is also available on Roku, Fire Stick, all major streaming devices, and as well as web browser full.live.
Right on. We'll drop links in the show notes. For now, Chase, we will let you get on your way there to the competition. Appreciate you joining and giving us a bit of a masterclass on pulling, not racing, pulling. And wishing you and the team all the best. Look forward to continuing to follow the story.
Yeah, Jesse, thanks again. And it's an honor to be on here. And as I said, anyone that's listening, I was in early stages of this journey. Your podcast was something that really kept me motivated, probably. So shout out to you and what you do, and honored being on. Hopefully we can do it again.
Betting Startups podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. 4 out of the top 5 US operators personalize player experiences with Optimove. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/bettingstartups. And if you like what, you'll get your first month free.